Hey everyone, I'm going to do a demo on Photoshop and setting up your layers and files for design work so that you're prepared for when you get to the stage of cutting them up for HTML. But first I wanted to give a little recap on the wireframes from this file, and this example right here I think is a good sample for showing how when you set up your wireframes, being very specific about all the information and where information generally goes is really good to prepare for the design stage. So this one on the left here is sort of general information, is still good. It gives a sense of where information is. We have our branding at the top. We have maybe our content area in the middle and some footer down at the bottom. So same with this one, but maybe some text sizes and a little bit more information going on there. Okay. And same with this one, a little bit more information, but just maybe two different ways of doing that. And that just sets you up for your Photoshop files in a better way. So I want to let you guys know about this website. Also, if you download this button right here, if you download all of these files, there's a Photoshop file. There's some Photoshop files which give you some general grids, but ultimately you're coming up with your grid. But I just want to alert you to this place where you can go and find some grids. So in Photoshop, we want to set up our files. We want to go File, New. I'm going to try and whiz through this pretty quickly. And so the assignment says to do a 960, and I'm going to 960 width. I'm just going to do about an 800 height. I can cut this down later. And I'm just going to say, call this website 1. And make sure that all of your dimensions are in pixels. Okay. So here we have the page, and if we double click on our ruler, we can get, if you don't have your ruler open, you go to View, Rulers, but double click on your ruler and make sure again that your rulers are in points. And then under Guides and Grids, I like to have a grid line every 20 pixels with a subdivision of 2. Okay, so when I go back to my page and I zoom in a little bit and I hit Command semicolon or Command parentheses, I get the grid. Okay, now to drag a guideline onto the page, I can just drag from the ruler out and drag over here. Okay, so now all of you had some sort of grid that you were developing, and you can drag guides out. Maybe you want to import your wireframes into your Photoshop just as a guide, and then make your grid with your guides. Okay, so we can do Command comma and turn on and off your grid, or turn on and off your guides. Okay, with hitting Command comma. Okay, now just for argument's sake, I'm going to import a file that I have here. It's the home page for Zipcars. Okay, and I've copied this off the web, and I am going to just copy this. I'm essentially going to create a file to show you guys how to set up your Photoshop files just using this website. Okay, and in here in my layers, I have right now this background. If I place the Zipcar file in here, you'll see that looks like this particular website is about a 9. It's maybe a little larger than. Well, no, it's about a 960 website. The width of it is at least. Okay, so that's at 72 dpi. It was a screenshot that I took, and I'm just placing that in here. So Just imagine that it is not designed, and let's say it's a wireframe. But I'm just going to create some guides here. Drag some guides. If I want to get rid of my guides, I can just drag them off the screen. Just drag them right onto the ruler. Okay. But in this case, I'm gonna bring that over there. I'm going to say I'm going to have these buttons here, and I'm going to create some lines for these buttons. Now you may have a more structured grid to yours. These particular ones right here have some difference in size. There doesn't seem to be much of a left and right margin to this, and that's partly because when if we go to the website itself, you'll see that there's space on the right hand side as well as the left hand side over here. Okay, so this is a center justified website. But here I go back to my Photoshop file, and I'm just setting up my guides a little bit. If I from the website that I showed you, this 960 grid, if I had downloaded this, those files, if I open up one of those, and I'm going to go to, you'll get a file that's called Nathan Smith's 960 grid system. It's a zip file. If you open that up, you go into Templates, Photoshop, and so these are different grid layouts. Okay, so it's some different ways of organizing your content. Again, I'm not suggesting you use one of these, but each one of you has a different layout to your page. But be aware that you really need to think about your grid, okay, and how that's setting up. So here I'm just setting up some general guides for how things might be working, and one of the things that I do like is, in this particular case, I'm just following the design of this page. But if I have my grid turned on, I can actually snap to some of those points. Okay, so I'm actually the guides are actually snapping to those, and that's nice for when you have you're setting up your left and right margins, different parts of your grid. It's a good thing to have those snap to the files there, to the grid. Okay, so I can lock lock this particular layer. Now I'm going to create a group, a new group, just to deal with my top navigation. Okay, so I'm going to do top nav. I'm going to label that. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this background. Okay, and okay, command 1 is actual. Okay, hold on a second here. Command 1 gives you your website at actual size. Command 0 fits it all on the page. Okay. So back to my background here, I'm going to create a field of color right here, and I'm going to imagine that this is no longer here, but I kind of get a sense that maybe I had some design there, and there was a green color, and I'm going to fill this background. Going to fill the where's my fill here? Here we go. Fill that with the background color. Okay, and then I'm going to say maybe there's the button background, and just so I remember what I'm doing here, I'm going to select this color, and maybe there was a line right there. Going back here to my Okay, now you can do this a number of different ways as far as creating the actual buttons, but you can draw a line, for example, holding down my shift key. I went over there a little bit, maybe cut that off. I can drag that over, so that's a little bit longer, and I'm going to select that, maybe cut that and cut that again so that I'm all the way over. Oop, down like that. So okay, so that's maybe those are two buttons that I have that I'm creating here. Okay, turn off my guides. I'm going to maybe add a little more dimension to this in Photoshop. And there's a number of different ways to actually do this. You can do, you can do some drop shadows, or there's a number of different techniques for actually making a button. So I actually have two parts to this, it looks like, at this point, so because I was copying that. So I'm gonna merge these two. I'm gonna say merge layers, so it's gonna do that right there. I'm gonna get rid of the copy, and let's see, I had join, and is this Zipcar for me? Okay, so if I'm going to create some type, I go over to the T and I say join, and select all there, and I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Now you'll notice that this is set to sharp right now. If I have none, it's going to give you sort of this like pixelated version. If I double click and I make this sharp, it's a little bit, if we look at it at actual size, that's a little bit better. It all depends on the typeface and the point size. Okay, so there I have join, and I can create another one over here. I'm going to drag, I'm going to hold down Option to duplicate. So Option, drag it over, hold Shift, and it's going to do it in a straight line. Okay. So what did I have here? I had join is Zipcar for me. Zipcar for me. Okay, so there we go. There's my two little parts of my navigation. So everything that would be for my navigation, I would put in this bucket right here, this folder, or this group. And let's say that there was going to be a logo, and there's other information that I might have, say over here. I might have the logo, so I'm going to say, I'm going to have my logo layer. I'm just going to put some color in there for now, and make it maybe a little opacity, so I know that that's where well, there we go. Give it some opacity right there. So I'm going to have a logo right there. I'm just blocking that out, and I have a layer for that right here. Okay, so this is my top navigation, and let's say that I'm going to have the main body of my information, of the page. I'm going to create another group for that, and I'm just going to say, I'm going to call this actually home page. Okay, I'm going to put that under the navigation, and I'm going to create another one, and I'm going to put this down at the bottom, and I'm going to call this this one the footer. Okay, now those are two separate folders. And if I go, part of the reason for this is, you'll see in a minute, is just so that you have your navigation up here, and you can change the pages. So let's say I have another page, and I have the home page, and on here I have a sub page. And so on the home page, let's say I'm just gonna block this out with, I have my grid, and I'm just going to block this out with some colors, but ultimately you would be putting in images and text information, for example. So let's say there's going to be, and I'm not going to follow this particular website here. I'm just going to create some other fields of color to just have as blocking out some information. But let's say that there's on my home page I have a field, and I'm going to say that there's some text here. There's a large headline, and I'm going to increase this large and move this over. Okay, and let's say that I have some text that's going to go in a paragraph. It's going to go right here. I'm going to click on my type tool to create a paragraph. So I'm going to say text goes here. Lots of text goes here. I'm going to select all. I'm going to make that smaller, much smaller. And ultimately, this text would be this text would be all in HTML, okay, as part of a field. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I'm going to cut that off a little bit there. But now I have one sort of bucket of information here, and I might, on my home page, I might take my background, and let's say that I have, I could have another field over here. Maybe I've got, say, you know, a couple of boxes or something that have different kinds of information, and then maybe I have a longer box over here, and I'm gonna add some color to that also. And the reason it's doing the opacity at that, it's kind of filling it with the opacity, but maybe there's some different values there for that information. And I'm not following the grid, but I'm creating some sort of a grid here. So on the home page, I'm going to close that. You can open and close the home page, and so maybe on your sub page, you might you might have a field that is where you're going to create your some sort of a form field with information here, and maybe that has some kind of a different color or information here. So I'm going to just pick another color, and once again, I'm going to do a headline and pick a color and increase the point size. So you get the idea. I'm organizing all of my pages here. These are just blocking this out. It's not designed. It's just to give you a sense of how to organize your pages. And so what happens is that one other thing, let me just do a footer. Maybe down at the bottom I have a line on my footer. I need a layer there for my footer. I'm just going to call this line image. And while you're creating this stuff in Photoshop, you're ultimately going to you can set a lot of this up in HTML. So I'm going to create a line there, and maybe I need some copyright information, or I'm going to say contact. Any kind of sort of footer matter that's important that doesn't belong up in the main navigation. And so I'm going to include this sort of down at the bottom. So that's my footer. Okay, but I've essentially set up my website so that I have the footer, the subpage, the home page, and the navigation, and so I can turn off these different things to see what they look like, but ultimately the navigation still remains the same. Okay, and that's basically how you set up your Photoshop files for developing a website. Now you can do the same thing in Illustrator and then bring these into Photoshop to actually cut them up. In Illustrator you can also create these subfolders or these groups. Create a new group so that you can organize your content. And I think what's really important when you get started is to make sure that you are in fact setting up your file in a way that is going to make it easier down the road to know where things are. So make sure that you name things properly, that they're descriptive, and that'll just help you down the road.